Hello, friends, and welcome to Page Turning Comics. Thank you for joining us. This is Pick of the Week. I keep saying issue 24, number 24, week 24, however you want to say it. And I'm here with Mike, and we come every week to read some comics and talk about them, say what we thought about them, and if we'll continue reading them or not. So, Mike, thanks for coming by again.
Oh, yeah, Steve, I think this is my fourth time joining you. Just as I've mentioned before, I'm still kind of a newbie, still learning, but I feel like I'm getting better at this. And like I now have a pull list.
Wow.
I knew what that was before, kind of, but now I'm actually doing it. So it's exciting in a way to feel like I'm, when I go into the comic book store, the guys there know who I am, things like that. So it's kind of cool. Like I've made another friend that way.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. Yeah. I just really appreciated that it's been kind of clicking for me now, I think a little bit. I'm still learning the lingo about how to describe artwork. And, I think I'm learning from you.
I don't know what I'm doing either. So we're good to go. But we're both getting either back into comics after not reading them for a long time, and we're just kind of dipping our toes in and seeing what we like, and we'll talk about it. And thanks for listening. It's great to have a co-host, Mike. So I'm glad I haven't scared you away yet.
No, not at all.
So this week we'll start with a book that I've been reading. I really like the first issue, and it's kind of been iffy for me, which is Antarctica. This is issue number 6 by Simon Burks and Willie Roberts. This is by Top Cow. I've been hanging on to this one for a while. I've been hoping it gets better. I've been a little lost in the last several issues and didn't really know what's going on. It was just kind of confusing. I love the artwork. It's been stellar from start to finish. But the first issue is very character focused, and I really like that. But I've kept the faith that for some reason that things will turn around, and I'm glad I did. This issue was a payoff for me. We learned a lot more about Hannah, who's the main character, and her dad, and it took a turn that I had no idea would come, and I really love it. Really surprised me, but in a good way. And the story that already seemed very intricate just grew in scope and complexity and depth. So I'm really excited to say that I'm glad I stuck it out, because this was a great issue. So yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. As usual, the art, colors, everything was great. And yeah, I am happy to have sticking with it. It was a payoff. I was like, thankfully it started to take a turn for me. So yeah, Antarctica number 6, I will be continuing.
Remind me again of the names behind Antarctica.
It is Simon Burks and Willie Roberts.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get a little bit more familiar with some of the names here as well. That sounds. I might have to check it out now that it's turned in a more positive favor for you. I think we have some similar tastes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great. So I'm going to talk about, I believe it's an anthology series. In that there's several series going on with the title of Dark Spaces. But what I read is called Dark Spaces Dungeon, issue number 1 and 2 from IDW. And it's by Scott Snyder and Hayden Sherman. What can I say about... I might just try to summarize both issues quickly, because I don't think you covered issue number 1, Steve. So really what we have here is more of a crime detective type of genre. I could not tell, although I could be wrong, that there isn't really any speculative science fiction or fantasy going on. However, there's some creepiness happening. For sure, the creepy factor is up there. with the criminal that is involved in essentially some very bad things. I found the first issue to have, the very nice layout, the good suspense and tension building, and I was happy to move on to the next issue, which came out this month. I believe the first issue probably came out in November. I will say that within the first few pages in Dark Spaces Dungeon number 2, I felt that the quality dipped a little bit. So I saw a few typos. It's not the end of the world.
Wow.
It's not a big deal. And even almost the artwork seemed a little rushed. I like the style. It's definitely more of an abstract artwork. There's a couple very nice layout pages, and again, it does build tension, and as I appreciated, I just noticed some changes. It does have somewhat of a cinematic quality as well. I think for me, I don't think that I really go for these kinds of stories as much. I don't necessarily want to give it away, but there's it does involve children, and for some reason that just didn't work for me as much. So yeah, I don't know if I'll be continuing. I don't think so. But there are other Dark Spaces out there. I can't remember the subtitles, but there's a few other ones as well.
Has it always in certain stories, I think, have kids always been something that you just didn't enjoy whenever kids are involved?
I think not necessarily. I'm a father, so I guess I put myself in the shoes. Like, there's a father that's involved in some bad things that happened to him, and I don't know. It's just I think it can rub me the wrong way. I think if there are children that are like main characters of the story as opposed to, say, victims or whatever, I mean, I could get behind I guess it's too close to home in a way. So yeah, I don't know. Do you feel similarly or not really?
Yeah, I do. I used to. I mean, not that it didn't bother me, but I think after becoming a parent, I think it just hits differently. It's just something. Those stories just don't. Like I said, not that I was fine with it before. It's different.
Yeah.
So I can relate. Definitely. So the next one, this one was one that I picked up because I was curious about it. And of course, Batman Death in the Family is a classic book. Joker kills Robin. And it's one of those classics that everyone always talks about. This is an alternate ending, it's an ending where Robin survives. And I thought it was interesting to go back and to see what could have been. Reading this made me want to go back and read some more classic arcs and more classic storylines. But it's even questioned in the book, speaking of kids, it's even questioned, like Batman questions, why did I bring a child with me to do this dangerous stuff? And I wonder that too, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you bringing a child with you in these dangerous situations? And you need to question that, knowing how dangerous it can be, why he's bringing a child with him. What I did think was interesting that we don't see a whole lot anymore is that there's other countries and some political things involved, some real life people involved in the story. And so I thought that was just interesting. I don't think we see a whole lot of that anymore, just because I think most people shy away from it. To have real life people, it's mostly a caricature or, someone who's obviously referencing someone, but it's never that on the nose where it's, exactly who they're talking about. So I thought that was just how times have changed kind of thing. Going back, I did question, would I have preferred that Robin lived, but I think if Robin had lived, it wouldn't be as classic as it is because it was so impactful that he died. So yeah, I think it was fun just to see the difference, but I think they did the right thing. The right thing. They, as far as the story goes, I think it was the more impactful choice to kill Robin and to have that storyline happen and not him survive. But yeah, it's classic because he died, not because he survived. So I do wonder what that storyline would have been known for now had he lived, but it was kind of neat to see what could have been.
So if I were to go back and I'm just trying to, because if this is number 428, when did this event take place, or was that
Oh gosh, it
was it
was in the 80s.
Oh wow, okay,
yeah, it's been a while. It's I forget how long the run was, but it wasn't too long. I don't think the run, but it's in collected editions. It might be even be available on something like the app that we were talking about earlier to read. Forget the name of the app. We were just talking about it. Hoopla. Right. It might even be available on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping to pull the trigger on Batman one day. Just if the number is that high up, I'm like...
It's intimidating for sure when numbers that high. So yeah, just really quickly, when I mentioned the Madness number 5, it's a 6-issue run. There's one more issue to go. This one, it may have been my least favorite one, but it was still fine. On one hand, I like getting more backstory and finding out about the characters and their history, but I'm a little bit concerned about how they're going to tie all of these things up in one more issue. So I don't know how it's all going to be wrapped up in a nice little bow. I also felt like some of the goofiness that's in the story was a little bit out of place. It just didn't seem like it was. It just seemed out of. It just didn't. It hasn't been that kind of book to feel goofy. So I didn't think it didn't really fit too well. But I'm still looking forward to the last issue, and I have faith that this team will somehow find a way to tie it together. And I do hope that we have more in this world and possibly some of these characters after we get the sixth and final issue.
Great. I'm curious to hear how it pans out, and then maybe I'll decide if I want to go back or wait for the trade to come out.
Yeah, that's one I wouldn't mind having in trade. I'm a fan of when a superhero or super powered person just like loses their mind and is out for revenge. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Okay. The next one that I have is called Dutch number 0 by Joe Casey and Nathan Fox with Francesco Segala from Image Comics. So before I get into this one, I think I read through 50% of the comic and I was like, well, I think this is building off of something else. So I just wanted to mention that this character originally appeared in Youngblood comics in the 1990s. The Youngblood. And that was created by Rob Liefeld. I'm not sure if I pronounced his name right, but I know he's pretty well known. But I didn't know that going into it. I don't think it matters that much. So one thing I will say, I think I fall for characters that are kind of like semi-retired, or they're kind of like done with it. I know it's a major trope or whatever, but I don't care. I don't mind. And so this Dutch is a retired superhero, but his past catches up with him.
I love that kind of stuff too.
So there's science fiction elements in here. I would say this takes place 30 years after the events of Youngblood, and I don't think he was a major character, by the way. I think he's a somewhat minor character. He has a robotic or mechanical arm, or cyborg arm. It's kind of interesting. I don't know too much else about him, but he's like a super it's kind of like a super warrior um, type. And I know that many of the other characters are described in here as well a little bit, but he doesn't really delve into that at all. It's really about him. So the artwork I felt was pretty stylish. Lots of primary colors. There are some moments, maybe action scenes, where it's more monochromatic. I noticed the pacing for me was quite good. I guess there is a lot more. Like I mentioned, there is backstory. I guess it's not too much. There was times initially where I was like, "This is kind of a lot," but then it kind of gets into action. So he does flash back quite a bit, and that's of course what made me think, well, this probably came from something else. So this is a issue number 0, and I believe the next issue doesn't come out until February. And I think it's only going to be like a 3 issue. There's only going to be 3 issues, but I think I'll probably continue. It's interesting enough character. I want to see what happens with him.
Yeah, Rob Liefeld was like a rock star for us. Well, us comic book nerds back in the 90s. He was on the Tonight Show, and he had Levi commercials, and he was like, for me, he was like a rock star when I was a kid. So it's nice. It's kind of neat that he's still drawing. I know he's had his ups and downs in the industry, and he's done and said some not so smart things, but yeah, I think it's neat that those characters are still living on.
There is somebody credited here as the creator of this character, which is Chap Yape, Yaep, and his name was mentioned a few times, but it's not on the cover for some reason.
Interesting. Yeah, just check that out. I missed that one. I didn't see it.
I think it's been out there a while, so it's from November. I should have mentioned that.
Oh, okay. But I still didn't. I missed that one still. So the next one for me was Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, number 2. This is by ADW. So I love this book. I really do. This is almost my pick of the week again. I'll explain why it wasn't when we get to the end of the episode, but basically it's a town with a bunch of stuffed animals, different, there's a bear, there's a turtle, there's birds, there's, all these, and the colors are very muted. They look like a child's story, like a Winnie the Pooh type of, the colors have that shade and hue to them. So it feels, if you didn't have any text, you'd think it was a child's story, a bunch of stuffed animals walking around. But it's about a bear who's a serial killer, and people in his town where he doesn't hunt start dying or start being killed. So there's a killer on the loose, and the town can only have one killer. I guess it's not big enough for 2 killers. And Sam, our main character, he tries to pretend he's a sheep when he's really a wolf. So seeing his act when he's this monster around all these people who have no idea what he's really up to, it's great. It's his inner monologue of what he thinks about everybody and how pathetic he sees everyone else. It's really neat, and it's becoming almost like a whodunit, because we're not sure who's killing people in the town, and we get very few clues, but we're getting bits and pieces of these animals being brutally murdered and desecrated. So yeah, this is great. It's just a fun, the contrast and the juxtaposition of this like fairy tale story and it's like a Dexter, like a stuffed bear Dexter. It's really neat. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this story, and this was really close to being my pick, but it was edged out, but just a little bit. So yeah, I am definitely going to be continuing, and I love this series.
One thing I was going to ask you, so is this a world where, everybody is a stuffed animal, or is it mixed with humans, or?
No, so far just stuffed animals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. Okay, so I'm next. All right, so this one is a bit was almost polarizing for me in that
Hmm.
there were some aspects that I really liked, and then some aspects that maybe didn't work for me as well. So I'm going to be speaking about Blood Run from Scout Comics. It's a #1 issue, and it's by Pozios, Evan Pozios, and Stefano Cardoselli, and it was co-created and written and illustrated by the two. I want to highlight in particular Stefano Cardoselli, who's an Italian artist, and the artwork is just out of this world. And so I will speak about the artwork. It's not what you would expect in a typical comic. It's surreal. It has, in some ways, it has very much playful, childish aspects, the way the artwork is done. But it's also just, for lack of a better word, it's just wild, It's almost like there's graffiti or spray paint. It's very off-kilter. And so there's quite a few pages where the artwork is really being showcased. And so like full spreads or what have you. And a lot of experimentation is also being done with the lettering as well. And so really what is this about? It's about like I guess it's, what do you call it? It's like a racing track setting, like a death race type of setting. I think the racetrack is called the Boneyard. There's a lot of crazy names for things. And so it's basically, that's essentially it. There's not a ton of plot going, plot points, or I mean, there's a story, of course, but it's all these different kind of cars, doing all types of methods to destroy one another, and it's violent, but the artwork is done in such a way that you don't really feel like it's graphic. So it's really hard to describe. So one thing I will say is there's a lot of humor almost on every page. Kind of reminded me of the Running Man movie, which I think when I first watched it was okay, but there's just so many one-liners. I was just feeling, it's not really working for me. However, so it's just like so-and-so crushes so-and-so, and then there's a one-liner. I'm not going to give a specific example, but it happens quite a bit. And so, at the very end, I'm not going to give it away. You kind of know why. It explains it, and you're like, oh, okay. So I had to think about this one, and so I did enjoy it. It's just that the story itself, I mean, it's really more of a work of art than anything. But the story itself is just, didn't work for me as much. But it's just, I can't get over the fact how surreal and abstract it is. And just very experimental and different and unpredictable in terms of the layouts and what we see from page to page.
Huh. Interesting. So yeah, I was looking at the cover, and the artwork is the art on the cover similar to the art in the interior?
Yes. Definitely. And, but you will get like a page like this, where it's just like one character smashing somebody, with some type of weapon or whatever. I don't know. It's just wild. Yeah. It's not like there's panels, but they're like, it's just from one page to the next, it's different. It's not predictable, chaotic in a good way. Which I guess is appropriate for the type of death race. Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely over the top.
Almost has like a muddied look to it, like a messy dirty look to it, the artwork.
Yes, and I think they used watercolor quite a bit, and a lot of use of black.
Let's put that one on my watch list.
I guess for a podcast is not a visual medium, but I made it. Do check it out if you can. Just check out the cover online if that's something that appeals to you. I wish I could reference other artists. I'm sure that inspire Cardacelli, but it's really something else.
Yeah, no, just looking at the cover on the Scout website, it looks great. Yeah, love the artwork. So the next one for me was Crusader number 4. This is 4 of 4. So I really enjoyed this series, and I like when one creator puts it all together. It seems like it was like a one-man show. And I am bummed that the first arc is wrapping up. But I can't say that I'm not over the moon about the last issue, but the 4th issue. I don't know that it wrapped up quite as satisfying as I was hoping. There was some character development that felt a little rushed, and it felt like it was. You get bits and pieces of this change in one of the characters, but I just felt like it was such a major change that I would have wanted a little bit more of that development of that transition. But overall, I liked it. It took some chances, and I think there were some things that I didn't expect to happen in the last issue, and the door is left open somewhat to more stories in this world. At least I really hope we get more from this world, or just at least adjacent to these characters. So yeah, so I'm happy with the storyline. I'll be buying the collection. I think it's in February. I saw in the ad in the book, so I'll buy the trade when it comes out.
I only read the first one, so I just have a quick question for you. Does that main Crusader character, does he have any development, or does he change over time?
Yeah, he changes.
Okay. Yeah. Because I'm curious. I for whatever reason, I've not been able to get other issues yet, so might also invest in the trade.
Yeah, I think I saw February, so it's not too far away. And the character, I know why you're asking that, because he does feel stiff. And not just because he's wearing a full suit of armor all the time. He just felt, the character felt very rigid in a not necessarily bad way, just because he was like a hammer and everything was a nail kind of thing. He's like a one-track mind. He's a crusader who kills things. So, no, I think it was overall. I'm satisfied with it.
Okay, so we have a blast from the past here. I may have mentioned this the first time I joined you on the podcast, actually, so I had to grab this. This is ROM Space Knight. It's a facsimile edition that came out this month in December 2023, but it initially came out back in 1979. So this is a character that I definitely read about a few times. I might have read maybe a fair amount of the run, but I don't think I remembered the backstory at all. So for I've never picked up like a facsimile edition. So the first thing I will mention, if any of you have not checked these out before, they're essentially the exact same thing that came out back in the day. So you have ads that are like Hubba Bubba bubble gum and buying all these weird, items. Get muscle building. Send $5 and build your muscles or whatever. Anyway, so that brought me back. So the character he comes to Earth from space via comet, and he's basically we do get quite a bit of backstory. There's quite a lot of exposition in here, more than I think we see in modern day comics. So we find out that he's like hunting down these kind of evil characters called the Dire Wraiths that attacked his planet. It's interesting that he immediately can, I guess he can pull technology from cyberspace, as that's the word that is used. Now it means something else. And so just these items, weapons and things he can just pull from wherever he came. And so one of them allows him to communicate. But I know Stan Lee was involved. I have no idea. Unfortunately, I didn't look up any of the other artists or authors. But generally, a question for people is, do you want to go back in time and get that experience of like a first issue? And for me, I did, because I just couldn't remember the origin story of this character. But essentially, I guess I could give it away because it's been around for so long. He's like a human, like an alien that is grafted to this robot. So he's like a white robot. And at my age, back in the day, and when I was reading this in the 80s, I was into robots. So anyway, I guess, I mean, I don't think they continue with it. I don't know why it was put out. I doubt it'll be like a new Marvel movie or TV series or whatever, but
you never know.
It really did bring me back.
Huh. So is it a reprint? They reprinted it, or is this something you picked up?
This is a reprint. So this was a, I think that's why I think it's called facsimile. So it's I had to pay today's prices. So it wasn't
80s prices.
79 cents or whatever. Yeah, so it was issued in December in this month, just I think earlier in the month. Yeah.
Nice. I wonder why they would reprint it. I wonder if they have plans for it or just for fun.
Actually, there's a few others that are out there. There was, I think, a X-Men, first X-Men as well. There's a few others. They're not in my comic book store. They're not like right in the front shelf. They're kind of, I don't know. So you kind of have to, you might have to ask around because it's not like a new issue per se. Yeah. I was meaning to, I was curious why this particular character. Maybe they're going to reboot it. Who knows?
That'd be kind of cool. There was ROM number 1. Wow. Okay. I'll have to check that out. I wonder what if they reprinted X-Men 1. Oh, it's from 79. Oh, okay, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Oh, really, I love the classic look and cover and colors.
Yeah. The artwork is simple, it's the color palette is not as exhaustive as we see today, but it works for me, Didn't bother me. I appreciated it, especially for what it was, and I don't think you can judge it with today's eye, you know what I mean? So I think we have to be careful a little bit. I don't know. These were mass produced, I guess, back in the day, so maybe that's why. I'm very curious to think about, what really, because a lot of the comics have very similar. Marvel, I guess, at the time has a lot of kind of similar tone or color palette, or anyway, they were mass produced, I guess.
It's pretty neat, though. I think there's something I don't want to say. It seems like we've been reading some classic sci-fi, and it seems like those stories are more about themes, and the stories are told a little differently than they are now. And things like cyberspace, it makes you wonder if cyberspace is what it is now because of things like that referenced it. Yeah, so things like a book like Neuromancer, it talks about Microsoft, and there's a lot of other names that it drops in there in that book, and that's the first time, as far as I know, those things were mentioned. So you wonder, did do we have things like Microsoft today because of that?
Mm-hmm.
Is that why? So I don't know. It's fun to go back and see what predictions or what was sci-fi in the 70s or 80s is reality now.
I think that in the short story collection that that is associated with Neuromancer, I think it's Burning Chrome or something along those lines. They say the word cyberspace, I think, is in one of those stories, I believe. So a lot of science fiction, like you said, has inspired people. I think what was the other big one? Uh, Now I can't think of the name. Uh, it's on the tip of my tongue, but anyway, there's this other very well. When I think about it, I'll let you know. Sorry.
Okay. It's hard to remember all these different titles and names for sure. So the next one for me was Killmore number 3. This is by Scott Brian Wilson, Max Allen Fox, and Valentina Brisky. This is by IDW. This book has lots of elements that I love, which is crime, serial killers, frustrated cops, all in one book. And it spoke to me. This book I love. There's some, the cops were introduced to more serial killers, and the odds continue to stack against the cops who are already frustrated and at the end of the ropes and feel like they're just banging their heads against a wall. So I do wonder when some of these serial killers are going to either have some kind of showdown or something's going to happen where, because we get introduced to new serial killers fairly often in this one. And there's some great dialogue in this one that I really liked. And there's some, you really get the feeling that it's just hopeless. I think in the past I've kind of made the comparison to something like Seven, where the city is almost a character in itself. The city seems very oppressive. It seems very like it's some like a cloud hanging over everyone. It seems like this cloud of hopelessness. And these bad people keep coming to town, and these cops who are trying to do the right thing don't always. They're trying their best, but they don't always make the best decisions because of the situation. So yeah, I just love the artwork. I love the art, the colors, and the dialogue, like I said. And there's also some dark comedy mixed in. It's very dry, dark black comedy, and it really works in this story. So I think it needs a little bit of that dry, droll humor just to mix things up, because it is a very bleak, I don't know, maybe bleak story, but the humor really lightens it up, and I laughed out loud a few times. So this is also one that was close to being my pick of the week. But yeah, Killmore number 3. It's what I describe sounds good, I think it's a series that you'll enjoy.
That sounds really interesting to me too. I just pulled up the synopsis. I didn't read it too much, but showed the first cover. That's one of the things that keeps coming up, I think, for both of us is humor. So sometimes it is working. It has to be. I don't know what it has to fit well, or it has to relieve tension or something. Maybe I don't know if that was the case here.
Yeah, I think the humor is it's hard to explain. It's just when it happens, it happens. It's hard to explain what exactly it is that makes it work. I think it just depends on the story that it's placed in. And I don't like over the top humor. I do like the dry humor is what really typically works for me. So the next one I'll mention really quickly is Masterpiece number 1. This is by Brian Michael Bendis, Alex Maleev, Ian Hearing, and this is by Dark Horse. I knew nothing about this book. I just saw Brian Michael Bendis and it was a number 1 issue, so I thought I'd try it. So it's about Emma. She's a young girl whose life gets flipped upside down when a billionaire tells her that her parents, who she knows nothing about, stole lots of money from him, and he wants it back. He wants payback on her parents, who she has no idea who they are. I have some mixed feelings on this one. it has some wit and humor, but the story seems very familiar. It seems like we've been here before. It seems like a retread of ideas that we've seen happen a few times. So I'll keep reading this one, but just barely. I was on the fence, but it's one of those that if it's there on the shelf, I'll grab it. If it's not, I won't seek it out. So masterpiece number 1 is one that I'll keep my eyes on, but not too much.
Would you say that it's more for fans of horror? Or?
Oh no,
No.
I think it's more. It kind of reminded me of like Kingsman or
Okay.
kind of like that. It's very the humor is. I think the humor is probably it's an action adventure humor maybe, but yeah. So it's definitely not too dark.
Okay. I did not see that one. I probably would have picked it up. So, okay, I guess this is my pick of the week, but there are maybe going to be moments where I guess we don't have a pick of the week. I know you've done that before, so this wouldn't be. Mm-hmm. This one, I'm saying it tentatively because I really need to see what happens. But so my next book is called Gumaa, Gumaa. I don't believe that's a Sopranos reference. It's issue number 1. Steve, I'm glad you knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Huge Sopranos fan over here. It's from Titan Comics, written and created by Ji-Hyun Lee. So, just pulling up a few notes here. It does have a subtitle of The Beginning of Her, and there is a forlorn-looking young lady on the cover. She looks like she's dealing with some zombie type of issue. That doesn't necessarily, we don't really learn much about what's happening on the cover. We don't even know what Gumaa is, per se. I don't believe I did. But let me just say we start off in a quasi New York metropolis type of urban center, and there are all kinds of interesting supernatural elements taking place among the people. We get right into action at the beginning. There's no exposition dump. The artwork is very gritty. But essentially, this is in the first few pages, you feel like it's kind of like a zombie story, but I don't really think it is. It changes quite a bit throughout. As I mentioned, there's not a lot of backstory or build up. You're just right in the action. I would call this, urban fantasy and horror mixed. The story intrigued me. I will say, we are getting towards midway through the book. It starts to become more about crime and mafia or the mob, or we learn about the seedy underworld that's happening, and we are introduced, drip by drip to different, what I assume will be main characters, but we don't really know too much about them. And if you're a fantasy person, there's definitely some magic happening. So I'm not going to give too much away, but the artwork really did it for me. There's a few pages where it's very dark and gritty and gray, and then there's light coming, and it's very luminous. And so the juxtaposition of the light versus the dark is I appreciated. So I don't really know where it's going, but it's really intriguing to me, and I don't know. I assume there's a lot of other stories like this. Maybe I just haven't read as many of them, but curious to see where it goes.
Yeah, I was looking up the book as you were talking about it, and the art is beautiful.
Oh yeah,
yeah, beautiful artwork. And there is an interview on the site about with the author, and in Korean the word Gumaa means exorcism.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Huh.
And I don't want to read too much of the interview because I'm weird like that, but I don't want to be spoiled. But yeah, it looks beautiful. The book definitely looks beautiful. Stunning artwork. Yeah. So was that close? Was that you mentioned about not having to pick? Was that a clear and away pick, or were you just on the
It's
fence of
not
which one?
yeah, it's not clear. I'd have to say there's just maybe a little too much going on. You just don't know what direction it's going to take. But the artwork put it over the edge for me. And I mean, this is really important, I think, in several of the books that I read for this week. The artwork really was stunning, and so that's really has to be factored in. Um, the story is important, but this is issue one, so I'm gonna give it a chance. Yeah.
Nice. So my pick this week, and it was close. It was a close one. My pick was one that we both had on our lists. You read this one too, which is Underhiest #1. This is by David and Maria Lapham and Hilary Jenkins. This is published by Boom Studios. First, I love the Laphams. I love David and Maria. I'm on board for just about anything they'll do together. Stray Bullets is one of my favorites. I have the omnibus behind me on the shelf. Big, thick Stray Bullets. I love the simplicity. I don't say simplicity, but the artwork has this, and Underhiest is in color, but Stray Bullets is in black and white, and it almost gives you some, it almost lets you focus more on the characters, and it's simple, but in a good way. The artwork is, even with colors. So they're very, very good at creating memorable and believable and characters you feel like you can reach out and touch them. They just seem like people. They're very flawed. They have all these faults. They all seem like people. This one's no different. I think we get into the characters fairly quickly. We learn a little bit about their backstory. It was a little confusing, and Mike, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording about how it's a little unclear about what is happening when. But from what the Laphams are able to do with their art and with their writing, and you throw in a good heist story, it's just, I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. So it's my pick because, well, another thing that I really liked is the panel layouts, the 3x6 or 2x6. I love the panels. I think while I love these really creative layouts and compositions of pages and all this really brilliant artwork and 2-page spreads, and that can be done very well, and it can really be immersive. There's just something about just a classic layout that is just effective. It just works. So I really like that. The panel layouts, I think it fit the story perfectly, and I am on board. I think part of me picked this because I'm just excited to see them with a new book, and I have high hopes that it's going to be fantastic. So I think that's why it edged out Killmore and Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees.
Yeah, I had no idea. You've mentioned Stray Bullets before, and the name didn't click with me, so I guess this is why we do this, because this is enriching my experience, because I didn't get a chance to look up the authors, but I can't agree with you more about how they take time with the characters. We slowly, the pacing is a little bit slower, especially in the beginning, and the development of the characters is very clear. They say things that normal people would say. Do you like right from the first page? These two guys are talking, and also, I mean, I think there's strange things that are hinted drip by drip, which we really don't know what's going on. but I really feel, and I'd love for you to let me know if this was the case with Stray Bullets. Do you feel like you really need to pay close attention to? Because I did. I felt like I needed to kind of go back here and there. There was some changes maybe in time that I wasn't quite clear on, and I assume that's on purpose. Was that your experience with Stray Bullets, or not so much?
A little bit. I think once the story gets going and you get immersed in the world and the characters, I think the characters become very, very clear. But I think at first, when you're still getting to know everybody, it's kind of like when you walk into a room and you meet a bunch of people. Mm-hmm. It seems confusing at first, but then you get comfortable and you know everyone by name in a little bit. So I think at first it can be a little bit much, but just like something like The Sopranos that you mentioned a minute ago, it's like there's so many characters, but by the end of season 1 or middle of season 1, you're like, everybody's name. So I think part of it is just getting settled into this new world and these new characters. But what the Lanthams do great is they're great at developing characters and making them memorable, and they just feel like people. So I think that'll pass.
Okay, great. Yeah, I really liked it. So I probably could have put it as pick of the week as well. I think it was just that I felt like I got stuck here and there, but I think it also could have been me. Maybe I read too many books in a row and I should have started with this one. I don't know. I might do a reread actually, and I would like to continue with the series too. So yeah, it was great.
That happens to me sometimes too. If I read too many in a row, they start to kind of blend together. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I can relate to that for sure.
I would even say that backfired on me because I thought, this is going to be one that I'm going to like, so maybe I'll save it towards the end. Yeah, I will say the book that I was trying to remember that was very influential in the world of IT or technology is Snow Crash. That was the book I was thinking of. Yeah. I haven't read it, but
it's on the shelf.
Same. It's on my shelf too.
With a lot of other unread books, but they make me happy. So it's okay. So it was a pretty good week. I think the only book that didn't do a whole lot for me. I don't know. I think they're all okay. Nothing really stood out as not good. Yeah. I think they're all either okay or great.
Yeah, I felt similarly. I think with Dark Spaces, it's good. I forgot to mention, there is it's a serial killer type of story. But there was just something that for me didn't work, but I could see it working for somebody else. So I wouldn't say it was in any way bad. And so I would feel similarly that generally it was a good week.
Nice. So that's issue 24. Okay. Issue 24. Yeah. Number 24. Unless there's anything else you can think of?
No, I can't think of anything else right now. I don't mind calling it issue instead of episode if you want to, because it's kind of a cool thing in a way. Up to you.
Yeah, I think it's kind of neat. This is by accident, but it kind of has a ring to it. So yeah, I think so. Then next week for issue 20 or for issue 25, for issue 25, I think Mike, you'll be traveling next week.
Yeah,
but we'll be back in. But Mike will be back in 2 weeks, and we'll catch up with all the books that we miss next week.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, I think we're going to do like one big mega episode.
Nice. So yeah, we'll catch up and see what Mike's been up to on his week away from us. See if he comes back.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'm liking this. I'm now invested in series. I have polls happening, so yeah, gonna keep going.
Yeah. it's kind of funny. I think we mentioned this before, but some of the series that started during the podcast recording I've become attached to just because it has a new significance to, to those stories.
Mm.
So, but I did pick up Batman. Was it City of Gotham or the Batman series issue 2? And it got lost in the pile on my desk and I didn't get to it. So we'll talk about that next week, but I have high hopes for that one for sure.
Okay, great. And we have Charred Remains coming up.
Yes. Yeah. We'll do Charred Remains when Mike returns and we'll talk about that one. That's an interesting one. I think, yeah, but we'll get to it. Well, cool. Well, thanks again, Mike.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say to anybody listening, please support your local comic store or comic shop.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for it. Go get a pull list and enjoy. For sure. So cool. So until next time, we will see everyone very soon. Hope everyone has a great holiday if you're into that sort of thing, and hope everyone have a fun and safe holiday season.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year.